Welcome back to the channel, guys. This is VIN 2280. This is a 2017 Caviar, paint code 223 with LA20 interior. It is $58,000 with 33,000 miles in North Carolina. It's for sale on Auto Trader by an individual, not a dealer. And it overall, first impressions, looks very clean. And so we'll get into values and more in depth here in a minute. The production on these cars, 446 of these out of the 2,347 made for the US 49, so that's US except Hawaii, were Caviar. Very common color. Of the 446, 224 had LA20 interior, which is the black interior with a standard carbon fiber trim. For 2017 though, only 65 cars out of the 342 made for 2017 for the US 49 were Caviar, and of those 65, 38, which is most of them, had black interior. So this car is one of 38 for 17. It's one of 224 for all years in this combination. Carfax, Epic VIN, and AutoCheck. So Carfax shows this as a 2-owner, 1-accident car, January of 2025, so this year. And it shows the rear, but based on what the seller said, it looks like the front. And so like the front headlight, front fender, all of the damage was from there. And so the seller actually discloses it in his listing here. And so he talks about the history of it and what happened, some of the modifications that he's done to it. And they're pretty tasteful modifications. Most of it's cosmetic, very well done. You know, I have no red flags or anything there. It was replaced with OEM parts. It was done at a reputable body shop. Again, I wouldn't look too far into that accident, especially looking at the pictures. It looks very well repaired. You probably couldn't tell it had an accident in my opinion. And you know, I've got a pretty good eye for this kind of stuff. Epic VIN shows it as a 3-owner, 0-accident car. Epic VIN seems to not report a lot of the accidents for some reason. I'm not sure if they just pull their data from a different source. AutoCheck shows it as a 2-owner, no-accident car as well. So again, Carfax is the only one out of the 3 showing the accident. I think it's safe to say that this is a 2-owner, 1-accident car, and it looks like the current owner acquired it when it had about 9,000 miles on it. So the current owner has been the one that's put the majority of the miles and of course the modifications and things like that on it. And if this is your car, well done. It's very tastefully executed. Previous sales in June of 2017, $88,000 for sale in Ohio. And it was still for sale January of 2018, 7 months later. Again, you've heard me talk about this in other videos, that these cars, when they first came out, they did not sell well. They sat on dealer lots sometimes as long as 2 years. They were discounting them $15,000, $20,000+ to sell them. And so it looks like this was one of those cars that started to sit for a while. So it sat for 7 months and then it was finally sold. May of 2023, which is what it looks like when this owner acquired it, $62,000 is what it was listed for, 9,000 miles in New York. So Ohio, New York. So it looks like the owner, a little over a year after he acquired it, put it up for sale September of 2024 for $57,000 with 29,000 miles, still in North Carolina, and pulled and put it for sale again, it looks like a month later, October of 2024, for $1,000 more, $58,000 with now 30,000 miles. So $1,000 more, 1,000 more miles. Same pictures that were being used. And now in July of 2025, July 19th, 2025, listed for $59,000 with 33,000 miles. So another $1,000 and 3,000 more miles. But again, it has the mods now too. That's another thing. So jumping into the pictures, looking at them, I mean, this car is flawless. I mean, it really, and I mean that. It's well serviced. It's extremely high quality pictures, so you can look very close. I mean, it looks amazing. And the seller seems very straightforward with disclosing the accident. And you know, you didn't have to wait to run a Carfax to do it. The seller tells you all about it, how it was repaired, used OEM parts. and it was a very high quality repair. So I wouldn't let that turn me off from this. Very minor chips on the front end, and I mean very minor, but the modifications to it are very tasteful, done well. They're high quality parts. These are not eBay parts, and it is commensurate with his asking price of $59,000. So speaking of asking price, where should this price be for this car? And I guess this is a case of the seller knows exactly what he's got. And the price, is it above market? A little bit, but not far. And for 33,000 miles, and you are not gonna find a car with that mileage and that age, that clean. I mean, there's really so few of them like this that I think that it will be a great example. You're gonna have to cough up the cash if you want it, though. You know, that's definitely, as I said, the seller knows what he's got. And very clean car, but if it were a car that had like 50 or 60,000 miles, it would probably be mid to low 50s, because it's lower mile and it's exceptionally clean, and the seller states that it's never been winter driven, so you kind of have that reassurance as well. So underneath probably is just as flawless. I don't see any concerns there. If I were in the market for a GSF, this would be definitely high on my list of ones that I would be looking at. And don't let the accident don't let the accident turn you away from this, and just inspect that corner, that passenger front corner, very closely. Despite the Carfax saying it was in the rear, it wasn't. It was on the front. And I would just do your regular due diligence on this. And so let's jump into the service history and see what everything's been done here. March of 2018, the JLB recall was done. That's the high pressure fuel pumps. So that's done. About 90% of these cars have that done. September of 2018, some paint, so PDR, some paintless dent removal was done. The sunroof seal was done, which is great. I've talked about that on a couple other cars. The sunroof seal over time will shrink, and the sunroof will start to rattle. The seal is the answer. You can do it yourself. It's about $40 and about an hour of your time. If you take it to the dealer, they're going to charge you about $200 to do that. But it was already done on this car pretty early on in its life. At that same service, there was a piece of interior trim that was done, and not uncommon. November 18, the left rear shock was replaced, and I've talked about this in some other videos. The 16s were immune to this issue. The 17s to the 20s had this issue with the electronic damping shocks. They had a defective oil seal that the part has since been updated, but you will see these cars, even brand new, they had leaking shocks. And so it's not unusual to see these cars with extremely low mileage that need new shocks. They're not expensive to replace, a couple $100, and of course some labor and an alignment, but it's something that a lot of the 17 to 20s, you saw it very commonly in the service history. So this car is no exception to that. 2021, the right front wheel was refinished, and there was a note about the customer supplied their rotors, brake rotors up front, and to swap the brake rotors. And that's it. So now on to the current owner, August 23, 13,000 miles. The coolant was replaced and the 15,000 mile service was done. So that's just a kind of an in-depth inspection other than oil changes, things like that, but they did the coolant as well. That's good to see. It may be in prevention to the coolant valley plate leak, and that has not been done on this. December of 2023, the rear shocks were leaking and replaced. February of 2024, the left front shock was leaking, so it's basically had all the shocks except the right front replaced. October of 24, all the taillights were replaced, and the driver's sun visor was replaced because the light in it was flickering. The rear taillights, that's not what I would call super common, but it's not uncommon as well. The taillights would either get moisture in them, or there's this black chrome that's inside them, and they would start bubbling and flaking off, especially on the trunk part where it's subject to more vibration from opening and closing. But this one has had all of them replaced. That was a pretty expensive replacement. These taillights are not inexpensive, and I'll put the prices right here. And you're going to spend some money when that happens. And I do know some GSF owners, they keep a spare set of those that have the means to do that. They buy a spare set and they're just going to put them on the shelf, because there's eventually going to be a time when you can't buy those, and that's going to be unfortunate. But this car, it's already had them replaced, so another check. The seller states it's never been driven in the snow. It's a nice day car for him. Obviously it is with the mileage the way it is, 33,000 miles. It's always Lexus serviced, very apparent after going through that. Again, lots of green flags here. I don't see anything red flags. The things that I would make sure to inspect are the lower control arm bushings, as always. That means look at the inside of the front tires, make sure that they're not worn. I would look at the coolant valley plate. It's not been done, but they did change the coolant early on, maybe as a prevention measure, but a preventative measure. But I would still inspect the coolant valley plate, and like everything else looks good. The carbon fiber looks good. I don't see any issues here. It's exceptionally clean. You're not going to find many out there like this. And again, he's asking in my opinion, I think he's asking a pretty fair price for what you're going to get, but it's above market. And I think it's, as I said, the seller knows what he has, and it's pretty apparent. But it's well kept, tastefully modded, all cosmetic, and it already has Android Auto CarPlay upgraded into the head unit. This would be one of those cars that, although it's a more common combination, it's definitely, if you're looking for one to hold on to and keep the mileage low and keep it looking nice, this is definitely one of those. So if that's for you, if not, buy it, go drive it. You know, these are fantastic cars to go drive, and you know, there's so few of them, and there's even fewer with low mileage like this, that, you know, as time goes on, if you bought this car now, fast forward 10 years from now, maybe it's an $80,000, $100,000 car. Who knows? But I think that this is definitely one that has the potential for future collectability. And it's not a high mileage example. It's not beat up. It doesn't have a lot of history, a lot of stories, other than maybe the accident. But I think that this is definitely one of the good ones, one of the better ones out there right now. This is August of 2025. VIN 2280. This is definitely one of the good ones, guys. Go check it out. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.